Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unapologetically You with myself, Tuls, and the beautiful, wonderful Kelly. We are so happy for you to join us today. And this is the third part of our episode of self-sabotage. So if you haven't already checked out part one and part two, Kelly and I delve deeper into versions of self-sabotage that we may or may not be aware of, and particularly the fact that we may be breaking promises to ourselves, we may be dwelling on mistakes, struggling to set our own boundaries. And what does imposter syndrome look like? What does procrastination, ways that we are self-critical to ourselves? And I loved those past two episodes. So if you haven't already checked them out, they are in the description box below. And today we are going to round up self-sabotage. This is the final part of the self-sabotage episode. And today we're going to be talking about how we stay in our comfort zone versus what's healthier or better for you. So yeah, hiya, Cal. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. I can see you're all rugged up. It's nice and cool, is it, in the UK?
Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm getting into my snuggly hoodies and, slippers.
Yeah. Nice. Perfect weather. Good sleeping weather too after a nice hot summer or a big hot summer.
I know, but I'm craving the sun again. Like you're going into summer right now, so I'm kind of like, I've got FOMO.
Well, I think they're going to let you into Australia like sometime soon, like with the international borders opening. Soon.
That's true.
You can come over soon.
That's true. Yeah. I'll bombard you and we'll just record podcasts together and go surfing.
Absolutely. I look forward to that day, actually, because we always talked about doing that, right?
We did. And now you're like on the beach practically. So from living in the mountains.
To the beach.
Yeah.
So yes, we can do sunrise podcasts and then go surfing, or do the reverse. What do you want? What do you want?
I love it. Bearing in mind, I've only been surfing twice, so I am shocking. I think it was beginner's luck on the first times.
So you start. That's how everyone starts. All good.
That's true.
And I'm not
actually
ahead of you.
That's a really good point, actually, because we're talking about self-sabotage and comfort versus growth. So I was kind of like looking at background of our comfort zone is somewhere where we feel knowledgeable, right? We are strong, we're in charge, we feel to a degree safe. And life is good when we're in this comfort zone, because at that moment, there's no stress, there's no fear, it's practically non-existent, and we're confident, we're calm, we're abound. But we volunteer, we do this as an option to go outside of this comfort zone, wander onto the other side, the dark side, where we encounter those storms and the turbulence and all of these things.
We do.
Why do we do that?
Well, you read a lot that you've got to do something that you're scared of every day. Have you ever heard that?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you can take that a little bit too far as well. I mean, doing something you're afraid of or doing something you're scared of is hugely stressful. And the lead up to it is just as stressful as the doing of it. So I have at times adhered to that and tried to do something fearful, not every day, mind you, but do lead up. But I never chose little things to lead up to this big thing. I always chose the big thing, and then I was just going to jump in and do this big thing. And it was so stressful to me. I really realized that, you've got to go up each rung of the ladder and not try to jump up and catch the top one straight away.
And so what was the big thing? What was an example of doing a big thing?
Public speaking, like everyone else. So speaking at conferences, and before that I had always said no. There was a point where I always said no. There was a point where I would begrudgingly say yes and then chicken out, big old chicken. And then there are times when I went through with it and did it, and it was not as exhilarating as I'd hoped. I was just a bundle of nerves. See, you find it exhilarating? People do.
Wow. public speaking is a really big one. I think there's a lot of people who have fear of public speaking. I was one of them. Like, I'll admit that I liked, being in the background as a coach. You're supposed to be one of the support members of your team, right? You're coaching this athlete who is in the limelight, or the team, whoever they are. And I was used to playing that role like throughout my life. But then when it came to a point where I wanted to purposely put myself out there and public speak, you know what I'm like. I go preparation crazy, right? Information.
Queen.
I like that version, preparation queen. Yeah, I'm gonna ad-lib that. I'm gonna make sure that's my new title. But the thing is, I was just like, okay, well, let's read books on how people present. What is the best way to do it? And also how to showcase myself. I think that when you're uncertain about your topic, who you are, your purpose, that can be really difficult to then present, and that's where the preparation comes in, right? You're preparing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing, your skills, your experts, your talents, and then understanding the subject, having that element of curiosity, but also risk, to then go further forward, to then go, actually, this was exhilarating. Like, I know I've been reading, it's an old book of Tony Robbins, but I've been reading his book, and he was talking about hundreds of thousands of hours presenting. So he didn't get to where he is now without the hard work, the toil, the effort. And every time he presented, he tried to figure out what was good about it, what was bad about it, how can he improve. And I'm talking about, he went to the nth degree of presenting like 2 or 3 times a day. Like, most people don't present maybe once every couple of weeks, once a month, maybe. And I feel like it's just going back to, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah, it is going to be uncertain. It's unfamiliar. But then it's that risk v reward, right? So I feel like when we take an opportunity to step outside of our comfort zone, we're reaching out to either feel that thrill or exhilaration. And for some people, they're so traumatized by anxiety, nervousness, fear, they end up, to a degree, self-sabotaging, really, where they have debilitated themselves from action, which means that they're not showcasing their best selves. They're not able to improve. And then they do like, okay, this isn't for me.
Yeah. So you're saying if you analyze that the reward is greater than the risk, then go for it. Yeah.
But when do you actually know? When do you actually know?
Interesting, isn't it? I know. And I guess you do have to try it. Like, I tried it. And to me, the reward is not exhilaration. So the reward for getting through it is far less than the risk for me. And people say, stand up there and just be brand Kelly or brand Tuls, but I stand up there and you just get the whole gawky, awkward, full version of Kelly. You just get the full truth, and that is not a good speaker or someone you'd have a conversation with because there's a giggle there, but it's not someone you want speaking to you as a lecturer, as a presenter. So in terms of presenting, I don't back myself to be great, as we're organising something where I'm going to speak.
Yeah, but you're speaking now.
Like, no. And the funny thing is, that's what I mean. How gawky and awkward I am.
No, I don't. Only because, like, in all fairness, I haven't seen you present, so I can't pass judgment on that. But what I feel is, I can't remember, but remember when we first started this podcast 3 years ago? It's been 3 years.
Yeah, I do remember the first.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to step into the unknown, the unfamiliar, but I'm going to drag you kicking or screaming with me.
No, I agreed to this because I knew you would be the good side. There's always got to be a flip side. There's the light and the gawky, and you'll be the light. And I provide the
credit
gold.
yourself. But the thing is,
No.
I knew if I'm able to do podcasts, then I'm improving how I'm coming across. I'm improving the way I'm conversing, or the way I'm interacting, the way I'm listening. And for me, the biggest one was, how can I listen more, right? But I think for us, because it's unfamiliar and because it was the unknown and we were kind of doing it together, we're still learning. And, the first podcast by far would have been completely different to the trajectory of where we're taking it now. But you're the same. Like, I love conversing with you and having these types of conversation, because we would do this offline anyway, right? We would have things like, go, actually, what do you think about that? And we would push ourselves or each other outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah, we do. We have some really good conversations. And at the end of most of them, we go, we should have recorded that. But we've missed a lot of good ones. But that's okay. We try to remember them and bring it all into our little 40-minute potty. So I think we do get some gold. We just get, like I say, just with a bit of gawk from me and all love and light from you. Well, I'm not going to change my mind on that.
Okay, fine. I'll let you have that one. So I wanted to say failure, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about failure. It just came up when I was coming across comfort versus growth. And I was thinking to myself, we are so misled, and we associate failure with so much negativity, and we're not aware of how much growth there is in that state of being or that outcome. So many people say that your best lessons come from failure, right? I'm sure you've heard of that at some point.
And
failure has to be a state of mind. I remember reading somewhere, actually, I can't remember where I read it, so don't quote me, but there was a family who would sit down at the dinner table and the parents would actually ask their kids, what did you fail in today? What did you learn?
I've heard this too. Yes.
You have?
So good.
And I love the way that they introduce this level of failing as an opportunity, and for it to be nothing to be ashamed of, to figure out that when we fail, we're often told that it's a bad thing, that we often feel miserable, right? It's like, it sucks when we don't do something that we're good at, or we've shown other people, I have failed on this one, right? And we feel, I don't know about you, but I felt cast aside. I felt miserable and failure, and there's so much negativity around that. And because we didn't get what we needed, we didn't get what we thought we did, but we excelled. And I think that's where there is that fine line between comfort and growth, where we're traveling to this island where it is unfamiliar, that it is unknown, and those rewards far outweigh the road of comfort, right? So why do we have this voice in our head that tells us to stay here? Why do we have this urge also to then go for the uncomfortable? It's almost like when somebody is working in an office job, very comfortable, they've been there for years, they've got their pension, they've got their monthly paycheck, everything's just ticking along. Like, we like routine, the brain likes routine, we like comfort. So how would a person in that position then take the decision to go at it alone, to go for their own business, to have this passion and work for themselves? Because the holidays aren't going to be there, the familiar surroundings, the people, the colleagues, but that your level of freedom, potentially your level of income can actually exponentially, thrive when you go out on that risk. But then you've got a high reward as well as a higher risk at that point too.
Okay, well, it's well known that people will do more to not be to get out of a place where they're unhappy or hurting than they will to get to a place where they think they'll be happy. So if you're, like you said, comfortable and got the weekly wage and you've got the colleagues and you've got the routine and all the things you like, then you're probably not going to put too much effort into getting to a place where you think you'll probably be happier. But if you're in a job that you despised, your colleague, or you've got no colleagues, or you really don't have common ground with them, and it's not a happy place to be. If you feel like you're being taken advantage of by the amount of work you do versus the wage you get, then you're uncomfortable. You're in a really uncomfortable position, and you'll do more to get out of that than you would if you were in that comfortable space. And I possibly haven't described that as I could, but we put in one of your posts about exactly about that. Okay, so there's stories about that and what people will do to stop hurting. It's like you want to change your diet, but it's hard. It's hard, and you don't want to start exercising, and you don't want to stop eating sugar or drinking coffee in the mornings. But if you get a bad health diagnosis and your doctor said you're not going to live till next year unless you stop drinking coffee in the morning, then you're going to stop drinking coffee in the morning. Can you hear me, Tuls? Because it says internet's off. No? Okay. Terry is someone who describes that really well. So I'll get his view on it, and we can either deliver a little bit more live convo on it, or we can put in a post. But even if you are in that comfortable position and you want to get that little bit further, I think baby steps. Instead of making the whole leap, instead of leaving your job and leaving your wage and leaving your colleagues, start doing something a little bit, bit by bit, chip away at it. It's like peeling an onion. And this is what I always say to my clients, working through pain is like peeling an onion. You just take off one piece of shell at a time, or paper at a time, because if you just take the whole thing off at once, you're just going to cry. Okay? That's what happens with onions. And that's what happens if you take that big leap all of a sudden, but peel away each little leaf of onion skin and you get there before you know it. And there's no crying.
I love that analogy, because actually I understood from different entrepreneurs as well who have advocated that lesson. Not quite the onion analogy, but the same.
No, that's my own.
Yeah, that's completely unique. But what I did hear is them say, if you're stuck in a situation where you are unhappy, but you don't want to full out go for the risk, do something on the side. It's that passion towards driving for something, hurtling towards something, running towards something, but you're not quite ready to run away from where you are now. So I think Elon Musk talks about this, of it's the fear of running away from something, but running towards something. Having that balance will actually keep you growing. And for a lot of people who fear, going at it alone or something that is beyond their comfort zone, it's start baby steps. I completely agree with you. Like, what can you do for a few hours in the evening? And also the biggest thing that I'm learning right now is, does it bring you joy? What more things can you do in your day that bring you joy? And if it doesn't bring you joy, why are you doing it? Life is so short, and people think and people expect that we're going to be here tomorrow, but nothing is given. Nothing is granted, right, for us. Nothing is, it's a privilege to be here each and every day. So I'm just like, okay, so like you and I feel like the reason, yes, I wanted to improve my communication skills and presenting skills, but every time we sit down and do a podcast, even in the preparation stages, I'm like, oh, I'm really enthusiastic about talking about this. And you bring in a different dimension to it as well. And we did it baby steps, right? We started on the side, and we're still kind of doing it on the side and making time and room for it. But when you and I both get off the call, I know for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, that was such a great conversation. I learned so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say at the end too that I'm buzzing now. So at the beginning sometimes, and we might as well say that I do this on my Australian Friday night. So I usually finish about 6 p.m. and we often start this an hour later. And I'm deadbeat on a Friday night. But after talking to you, I'm always buzzing all the way through the night. My head's spinning with ideas and things we've just said, and going over and over. So yeah, I love that. But we did take baby steps. You're right, Tuls. And I think even our ideas have evolved, and we're also really prepared to stake our opinions, but also change our opinions, right?
Yeah.
So something that we might have said 3 years ago, based on the experience and the knowledge we had then, we're very willing to change it based on our experience and our knowledge 3 years later. And more research that comes in and more people that we've spoken to, and we've spoken to a lot now. So, yeah, their experience, we can reinterpret our opinions based on things we've heard and learned since then, right?
I completely agree. I love that as well, because actually what we're doing is we're pivoting, and we're not afraid to pivot. I think when it comes to our version of success, it's all great to have a goal. It's all great to have a mission, but don't be afraid to pivot it and maybe start again. In terms of, a lot of times, and again, I read this somewhere else by another successful business person who said, if you are headstrong on this is where you need to go and this is where you need to be, and things have changed in the meanwhile, the whole point is people are so invested at that point, right? Oh, I've invested a lot of time, energy, effort, money, and they don't want to pivot at that point, because it's just like, damn, I've put a lot into this. I've put my heart and soul into this. Yeah. And that was where I'm supposed to be. But actually, it's that pivot. It's that, it doesn't mean the destination, you won't get there. It just means that you're going to take another road to eventually get you there. And I feel like that we've done this with a podcast. And it really, really brings me to the point where you said, actually, we are growing, we are evolving, we are including research, but doesn't success come from advancement and growth? So we're choosing to self-improve, we're choosing to develop, refine our skills, our talents, and our experiences. So actually, we are stepping outside that comfort zone. And I feel like we need to also remind people that it's okay to lean on others.
For sure. That's something that I think a lot of people don't do well. I wonder if it's a generational thing. I wonder if it's
why wouldn't it be from fear? If people have been hurt in the past, or if people have been kind of screwed over, if people have been, they've gone into partnerships, they've gone into business and even relationships, there is a certain sense of self-sabotage where we want to stay comfortable. I'm the epitome of that, pushing guys away and relationships, and I'm like, no, like, I'm happy here. And then you realize, actually, you're blocking the potential of new love, of new experiences, of new adventures.
Yeah. And relationships are a really good example of that, and something that probably we could all resonate with as well. But it translates to a new job as well. And it transfers to so many experiences in life that we just step back from the line from. We just get to the start line, and as the gun goes off, we just take that step back instead of that step forward, don't we?
I think we've both got experiences of that. And you remind me of the 4-minute mile. When the first person did the 4-minute mile, it was impossible to do. And then as soon as he achieved that, as soon as they were able to get within that 4-minute mile, for the next few months, that achievement was surpassed by tens of hundreds of people. And that barrier was so elusive to other runners because they couldn't see it. And when you can see it, you're able to go, actually, well, if that person can do it, then maybe I can too. And it's that, it's overriding the old narrations, the cycles, the triggers that you already have in your head.
Exactly. It's just like updating Windows, right? Just an update to your way of thinking, and of now the body runs a little bit better, or there's an idea of how to do it. There's, he would have, it was Roger Bannister, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. He would have spoken about how he did it or how he trained, because that's all the media would have, they would have asked that and other things, but they would have asked that. And so that information would have been out there. And so people go, I'll do that too. I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes with some things, not necessarily with physical prep, definitely not with physical prep, but, eating and nutrition, things that I am not knowledgeable about. There's a day of talking. So tongue-tied. But yeah, things I'm not knowledgeable about, I will listen to lots of different advice about, and copycat along with things. So yeah, we should all sort of, what was the, don't worry, move on, Tuls.
Okay.
I lost my thread there.
Well, no, I was just, it was more along the lines of, comfort versus growth. And when we were talking at the beginning of our podcast, we were talking about surfing. And it was so funny because the first time I tried it, I was like on it. I knew how to pop up. I was getting it. I was riding the waves. It was just like literally ride it and then crash out because I didn't know how to land properly. Or and then on the second time around, there was like salt water in my face. I was swallowing water like no man's business. I just wasn't having fun. And I stopped the lesson. I was like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I'm sick of crashing out. And
this just the next day? Was it 2 days in a row you did it?
No, so this was one day. One day it was for a couple of hours. And then the next time I did, I think it was a year later or a year or two later. Yeah, it was a year later. And then I did that again. And that was unfamiliar because last time I was surfing, but you were nearer the shore. Whereas the last time I did it, I was basically in the middle of the sea. So when you're done, you kind of have to go back onto the board, go back into the wave. So there was no respite, basically. There was no period of pause. If you did want to pause, you get back on the boat kind of thing. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm tired now. And I think that we just end up going, oh, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was hard and because it was uncomfortable, and drinking salt water is never fun. Yeah. No, look, same with me for surfing. The first time I did it, I was in Bali, and the waves were really regular and consistent, and it was easy. And the next time I did it a few times in Bali. We did it every day of the holidays, and then we came back to Australia and tried it, and the waves are really inconsistent. There's a lot more rips, and I went, I'm going to drown. This is the worst. This is so much fun. So much, not so much fun. Same as you, right? And I'm kind of like, oh, just spent so much money on this board. But anyway, I do love it now, and I can do it better now. So, but really, was your first time in Bali? This is why I.
So my first time was in Mexico, and then my second was in Bali.
Oh, so Bali was no go.
Bali was no go. And then also I cancelled the lesson after. I genuinely was like, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, no, get it. I probably would have done the same thing. Just want to enjoy your holiday, right?
Yes. And there were other activities, like we went snorkeling. I was fine paddleboarding. I was like, I'm happy with this. I'm like being mindful paddleboarding and
paddleboarding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like some people find that boring, but for me, I can really sink down into mindfulness. But again, I went back to the comfort zone. Like I'd only done it once before. So this was the second time I was paddleboarding, but I was just like, well, I'm okay here, right? I'm comfortable here.
Well, you know what? I think on a holiday, it's okay to stay in your comfort zone because you don't need to stress yourself out doing different things. I mean, stress is stress, right?
Mm.
So you go away on a holiday to actually de-stress or to, not distress yourself.
Yes, true.
So, yeah. So I'm all for enjoying yourself on a holiday and cancelling that surf lesson should you want to. But we've got to get you back on a board. So, there's no, you can't cancel that forever.
No.
You've got to get back on, and we'll do it next time you're out here.
But it was the same with when I was skiing. Like I'll try different things. And when you said earlier, try things that scare you, that was one of my mantras a couple of years ago. I was like, I need to do things that scare me. And I'm the type of person that I'll always try something once, right? You can't discredit something unless you've tried it. And I was the same with skiing. And it was so funny because I did a couple of hours of lessons in the UK before I obviously booked a holiday. And I wasn't getting it. There were people advancing ahead of me, and I was like really gutted about not getting it and advancing to the next stage. And then the instructor came along because he kept describing things like images. So how people learn, where he was like, oh, so make sure your skis are like in pizza shape. And it was coming up to Christmas. So he was like, imagine you're hugging Santa. And I was like, been working. Like, stop talking to me like I'm a 5-year-old kid. And then you will never guess what, Cal. And then when I'm there on now on my lonesome because everybody else has moved up a stage, right? So I'm there still on the itty bitty part where I can't freaking brake and manage my skis crashing into people a couple of times, you know, like I was terrible. And then you know what he said? He said, when you put the trajectory of your ski in certain ways, you're putting extra pressure on the ski in the internal rotation. So he's like,
so he spoke physics to you and you got it. Yeah.
100%. When he spoke in that technical term, and he even made me look back at what my skis were doing. So he was like, do you see how much emphasis you're putting in your right leg? And then you need to ease. So basically, I was stressing so much of how to be technically proficient that I was being technically inefficient. And when he spoke to me that way, I was like, oh, it makes sense now. I just need to relax.
It's so true. Doesn't tension put a poor performance? And we know that with athletes as well, tension does not create efficiency. And obviously the same when you're learning to ski, and it's the same with surfing. So it's the same with learning anything. You just got to drop the tension and roll with it.
Yeah, right? But you know where that tension has come from? It's that expectation that you want to be good. And you don't want to fail.
So you've got to be okay with failure. Lean into it, you know, and even reframe the words to something that doesn't have the same connotation.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what goes back to that point, right? Well, what emphasis are we actually putting on failure, and why are we afraid of failing? Why can't we embrace failing and talking about failure? Like, we've talked a lot about our failures, right? And it's fine now. You know what? We've learned from it, and we're still picking ourselves back up, and we're still learning. I mean, and that's the point, right? We are growing, we're improving, we're advancing, we're creating new experiences, stories that we can laugh at ourselves later.
The memories that we're laughing about, and hopefully other people are laughing along to, or resonating with. So they've all been beneficial, all those failures.
For sure. And then and that's the thing, you're enhancing new experiences, you're gaining new adventures, and then there's further opportunities.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, even in job interviews, they'll ask you about something you failed at. Right. And it's great to have these kind of stories instead of saying I haven't failed at anything. It's like, well, you haven't tried anything if you haven't failed anything. But that's really what you're saying, isn't it? If you say, I can't remember the last time I failed anything. So you're really saying I haven't tried anything too much lately. So it's great to have those stories at hand and even have something to laugh about, and, you know, a bit of banter as well. Depends on how serious your interview is, I guess, but I don't think I've ever had an interview, you know, shirt and tie or heels or anything. It's just not our industry. I've turned up in a tracksuit and covered in chalk and, you know, straight off the gym floor, but they're the kind of interviews you have in our industry, right? So I'm really basing that off my own experience. But I think it's good to have that bit of banter and the story ready, and like laugh at your failure, but and you can actually say what you've learned from it.
What would you say is your biggest failure then?
Biggest failure?
Yeah.
Following through with stuff. I am a very big ideas person. Ideas galore. I wake up with ideas, but I don't follow through on very many of them. So I'll give my ideas away to people because I don't have time to, or I choose not to. That's it. I don't choose to follow through on so many of my ideas. So I'll do partial things and sort of don't follow through. Following through. That's my biggest bugbear about myself. But there's lots of things that I could list. And that would probably be the one that's right here, right now, right in front of me, not following through with stuff.
But when you say that, it reminds me of I remember in my previous role, I'm the ideas person when I was in that role, and she was the realist. So we
Yeah.
really gelled well together because she would kind of ground me into, oh, how is this going to work practically? How is this going to work in this department or this element? And I found that refreshing because I think that you need that almost yin yang opposites attract kind of thing where you are still helping each other grow. So you could be an ideas person, but as you just said, that you are willing to let those ideas go to a degree so other people can follow through with them. Also, you can, focus on something that you are following through with.
Yeah. And something that really excites me. So I'm at that age now, and that part of my career where it really does have to gel with me and make me excited to do it every day, or I won't do it. Yeah. If
So
I find
your
myself
growth,
complaining about something,
so your growth
okay.
lies in curiosity and passion, is that right?
I would say both of those. Yes, Tuls. Yeah, definitely need to be passionate about it. And I am passionate about things. Like when this, I will talk about it. I'll bring it up when there's no context whatsoever. People are like, where did that come from? But yeah, so I am passionate about things, and curiosity has always even today, someone I don't really know, because we haven't long lived in this area, and most of it's been locked down, so we haven't met a lot of people. But this was the pharmacist down at the pharmacist, and I went and had my second vaccine today. He said, we were just talking while he was about to jab me, and when we went to go, and he started calling me Curl by the end of it, and when people don't know you, I don't mind, but most people would call me Kelly, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he called me Curl, and he said, you have a very curious mind. And I went, curious in like a curiously query way? Or he goes, no, I can just see that you really think about things and, think about things that most people wouldn't even notice. And I think that's true. I do think about things that no one else notices.
So like what? Does that mean you're like hyper vigilant and observing? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think so. Observant. So I'll see an advertisement for something and I'll try to work out who they're targeting, why they're doing it that way, why that person would see that ad as effective or not. And then I'll go, but I don't see that as effective, or I can see right through that. So who are they trying to target? Stuff like that. Do you think about stuff like that?
Oh, so you don't see it as face value. You go into the next few layers and then you're analyzing. But you know what I'm thinking? With you over analyzing something so simple, like an advertisement, which actually takes a lot of hard work, toil, a lot of people behind that, a lot of science behind what the advertisement does to draw it in. But actually, what makes me link in with this is not that you're not an over analyzer, not that part. It's the fact that probably feeds your curiosity and your creativity. So actually finding that out may not be relevant to where you are or what you're doing, but say in the few days, weeks, months time, years times, you may pick up something that you've thought about earlier and it actually translates into something else that actually manifests creatively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's true. Absolutely. So all these little workings, all these little cogs that are going on are leading towards something bigger, or they're feeding into something bigger. But the curiosity about so many things really is something that drives me daily. Sorry,
say that last bit again.
I said, who knows what the big pond is that it's all feeding into just yet.
Yeah. And I've got that myself. Like I remember reading books even years ago, and not really knowing the relevance to it. And now I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, where did that come from? You've got it stored, and all of a sudden it's coming out when you're coaching, or it's coming out when you're speaking to your clients, or even conversations like this. Like, the thing is, we've got a library in there, and we think we've forgotten about it, but it comes out at the right moments. And I feel like I now have the space, the capability, the energy to pursue my hobbies. Like, before, it was just S&C, breathing, eating, sleeping, S&C.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I needed to learn it all. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I was describing to somebody else, it's a specialist generalist. Like, you can't be niche in something when you have to know about nutrition, physics, chemical reactions of what's happening in your body, a program delivery, how you're actually utilizing certain pieces of equipment and doing them differently, or having no equipment. How do you do that? And you're building up your library, your toolbox, essentially, to have all of that to hand. And then that's not even touching about, social relationships and the communication skills and all the things that you need just as a person. And now I'm like, okay, I've got that in the bank, kind of, I hope. And now I'm able to go, oh, I'm really curious about space. I'm really curious about, learning my musical instrument and learning a new language. And I'm trying to be disciplined. Like, I've been really terrible practicing at the moment, but I'm trying to be disciplined to going, what am I curious about? What actually is that? And I still have no idea why I'm enjoying these hobbies and what the future goal may be. Like, I am not going to perform in public ever with my guitar. No, ever. This is just a personal thing for me. Say that again.
The guitar you're learning?
Yeah.
Can you sing?
I used to sing. I don't sing anymore.
You can't stop singing.
Oh no, I sing for my own private audience, which is no one.
Used to sing for an audience. Do you mean you used to sing publicly?
Yeah, no. I did sing publicly, so I had lessons. I was well into performing arts, so I did all the singing, dancing, hoo-ha when I was younger. Yeah. Things you don't know about me.
Lots of things that I know about you. That's insane, and I wish I could sing. So I'm jealous.
Well, the thing is, I haven't been practicing, so my vocal cords are out. I'm not in tune as much as I used to be, and
that's just practice. You'll get it back. But 100%. Anyway, yeah. And so what language have you been learning?
Sorry,
what language are you learning?
Oh, I'm trying to learn Italian, but then I dip in and out of it. And because I'm not immersed in it, I'm not practicing it as much. I'm just listening to tapes. And I'm not proficient in it enough to then keep me motivated, right? You're just you're listening to a language, but then you think you're pronouncing it correctly, or, how do you need to converse with people? And I think that maybe I just need some time in Italy.
An Italian hunky boyfriend.
So
for the summer. Anyway, yes, off topic.
Go. So, and that's the thing. It's going back to how do we find that comfort versus growth, but also pursuing what we love. Because pursuing what we love, we're growing in that sense. But I think I saw a quote actually this morning from Gretchen Rubin. She has moments of happiness, and she says, you can't hold a guitar and not play it. As soon as you put yourself in a position, you put yourself on a surfboard, or are you just going to sit there? I mean, you can just sit there, but you're going to paddle a little bit, right? You're going to try things. And I feel when you put yourselves in situations, and then, just as you said earlier, baby steps, take one step and then back off, take another step and back off. I was frustrated with a guitar because I just wasn't quite getting it. And then when I tried it again, your brain problem solves. And I love the way the brain works about this. And there's plenty of research that says it as well, that people often make errors in judgment in their the next note that they're supposed to play. So they constantly make those errors. But given an 8-hour sleep, given time to process, the brain has already recorrected that. And in a study, they actually said the person played it again, but seamlessly. And they had no practice time between when doing it wrong and doing it right.
Yeah,
so
actually,
I've done the same thing, and I've seen this manifest because I've been frustrated where I can't switch quickly enough between chords, which then I've taken a break, and then all of a sudden I've done it even without looking, because normally I look at the strings and I'm like, I'm doing this, and that reward makes me want to do it again. You know, it
Yes,
gives you
absolutely.
that hunger.
Yeah, that dopamine release.
Yes, for sure.
Isn't it good? Yeah.
It's so good. And that's, I think
Good.
that's what we're chasing, right?
For sure. Absolutely. And it's not healthy not to have that dopamine release.
Because we get it in various ways. We've got serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine. Like, people forget that we get happiness from all sorts of things. Like, how can you include more of those things in your day?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you've got to find out what they are,
Mm-hmm.
and then deliberately chase them, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Cal, it's just been such a good conversation. We just carry on talking about dopamine hits and taking risks, right? So we're going to round it up today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast as much as me and Kelly, did talking about it. But if you are not already subscribed to YouTube, please check us out and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, because apparently that's important. And also, we're available on Patreon, so if you'd love to support us and help us continue doing what we're doing, we would love for you to be part of that community. And as a final little reminder, I have my program, Elevate Success, as a 3-step leadership formula, just specifically for women who want to crush it, who want to elevate their levels of success and be powerful agents of change without burning out. We talk about things like self-sabotage, drive, passion. We've got elements of the portal where you have your own personal mobility, strength, and mindfulness sessions, as well as how to gain more productivity, more flow, more focus, and creating some relationship boundaries and self-empowerment mindset tips. So if you were interested, please direct message me, and we will see you on the next podcast.
Yes. Thank you, Tuls.
Thanks, Cal.